Okay, Mark Carney answering some questions here. Let's take a look. I've not seen this video yet, but if it's in French, I'm going to move ahead a little bit to the English part. Let's take a look. This is today, though, very shortly before I started this live.
C'est presque comme chez nous. Bonjour tout le monde, merci d'être venu. C'est un jour important.
C'est un jour important.
Parce que c'est pour la première fois en presque 4 ans.
Okay, he said it's an important day, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go forward a little bit to the English.
De cette
Still en français.
discussion est d'avancer.
D'avancer.
Et au fond, c'est dans nos intérêts parce que
I don't
l'Ukraine,
know what all fonts means.
Mr. Kushner, and the leaders, on va travailler très fort pour ces objectifs.
We will work very hard for this objective. On va travailler.
Thank you for coming. It's an important meeting this afternoon between President Zelensky, the U.S. representatives of this peace process, Mr. Witkoff, Mr. Kushner, and the leaders of the core of the coalition of the willing, obviously including Canada. Our main objective is to finalize the security guarantees amongst ourselves which create the possibility of a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. We will also be having discussions around the economic plan, advancing that work, the so-called prosperity plan for Ukraine.
I think there will be questions here. I don't really care to hear him do a speech. I'm more interested in him answering questions.
All of this is part of a 20-point peace plan that has been negotiated. I will use the assessment of President Zelensky that, in effect, in his judgment, we are 90% of the way there to peace. The final elements need to be negotiated on a tripartite basis, United States, Ukraine, and Russia. Le point final en français. Selon le président Zelensky, nous sommes 90%.
It's so funny that everything has to be in French too. Like, I wonder what percentage of people in Quebec that speak French also just understand English. Like, the going back to French for everything, it just feels like it's for such a small percentage of people. Because most people in Quebec for sure understand English. It's just the most dominant language in the Western world by far.
Questions.
Prime Minister Michael.
Okay, good. Now we're at the questions. Here we go. I like la langue française. It's nice, but it is quite funny. Even at the airport, I know people complain about having to hear it on an airplane. I actually find it somewhat soothing. It reminds me of traveling, which has usually been a positive experience, so I don't mind that. I feel like the thing about in Canada having to have every container also in French, I feel like is a little ridiculous, even if you're in the prairies. But anyway, we'll continue.
Questions.
Prime Minister Michael Couture, CTV News. Thanks for taking our questions. In terms of security guarantees that Canada can offer, do we have the military bench strength to supply troops?
Yeah, so I'll just give a high-level outline and answer your question. And I say high-level in part because what we're doing, and I want to
I'm trying to say the word like less. We'll see how it goes.
Salute Jenny Carrigan, the Chief of our Defense Force, our National Security Advisors, others who've been working intensively over the last few weeks, but over the course of the last months with their partners in developing the operational elements of this. So I'm going to speak in a high level, recognizing there's a lot more underneath about what I'm about to say.
Okay, let's go.
The first line of defense, obviously, is the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and one of the elements of the 20-point plan, peace plan, is going to be the size of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, which is considerable as it's negotiated now, so the size would be very large. Secondly, there is monitoring and other support, logistics support that would be provided, training support to make sure that the Ukrainian Armed Forces over the medium term and longer term can defend themselves then the backstops become the coalition, the willing forces, so-called multilateral force, of which Canada would be a member under this framework, and very importantly, the United States is playing a backstop role. Do we have so to get to your specific question, do we have
I don't think he really answered the question yet. It's just the one thing about Carney that is undeniable, I would say. If you compare him to Trudeau, he's obviously way more professional sounding in a setting like this. There's just no denying it. I'm more of a right-wing person, so ideologically, I don't actually agree with Carney on very much, but he does present himself well. How important that'll be moving forward in Canada, we will see. I mean, hopefully somehow his professionalism can secure more Canadian contracts, or maybe can attract more investment into Canada. I'm definitely doubtful of that, but since he's been elected, the Canadian stock market at least has done quite well. I'm not saying that's because of the way he talks or anything, but that has happened. The Canadian economy, though, I would still say has definitely been bad.
The bench strength, to use your term. Well, we've been building that bench, and we're going to continue to build that bench. The largest military buildup in generations, coming over the course of the next 5 years, an additional $80 billion of investment, in part because of issues like this, very importantly because of issues in our perimeter. I'll point specifically to the Canadian Arctic as an example there. So yes, we do. There would need to be a redeployment. But the last point I'll make, and just to put in context, which of course we're stronger together. So we're as part of a coalition, as part of a multilateral force coming behind and coming with the Americans. That means that our contribution has a much bigger effect than obviously that we would if we were on our own.
You mentioned in your opening that today
there's a fine answer, but it's pretty boring.
is to finalize those security guarantees. If that doesn't happen today, is today's meeting a failure?
Well, we don't expect to fail. A lot of great work has been done that's brought to the point. It needs to be interrogated, if you will, by leaders, which is what's going to happen this afternoon. And I think the way I look at this in terms of the intention and the goodwill and the seriousness with which the countries, Canada included, are approaching this is if we don't finalize, and I think we will finalize, but if we were not to finalize today, it's because we've identified issues where they could be improved or adjusted, and then we would come back and work on this. This is not a make or break, but maybe I'll just reemphasize one point. There is a lot of momentum in this process. And that's why it's important. It's important that Canada is here. That's why I'm here, is because there's momentum, because that progress has been made, and important to, as I say, to finalize this key component of a broader peace agreement.
He didn't really say anything there. That was a non-answer.
Bonjour, M. Carney. Christian Noël de Radio-Canada. Concrètement, qu'est-ce qu'on peut offrir à l'Ukraine? Est-ce qu'on peut offrir des troupes canadiennes en Ukraine? Vous n'avez jamais exclu ça complètement. Est-ce que ce sera surtout de la formation et de l'équipement? Et si on n'arrive pas à s'entendre aujourd'hui sur des garanties de sécurité, quelle est la conséquence?
On commence avec...
I don't exactly know what that reporter said. What is the consequence of a security guarantee or something? The Quebec accent also is just harder to understand than the accent from France. So I think what's the consequence of maybe not getting a security guarantee? But I don't know if that's exactly what the question was.
L'offre canadien, ils sont des possibilités à ce moment-ci. Mais on commence avec, oui, la formation. Maintenant, le Canada fournit la formation pour les troupes ukrainiennes en Pologne, pour les troupes ukrainiennes pendant la guerre. Et je peux vous fournir les montants après à la conférence de presse parce que je veux vérifier, mais c'est des 10 000 de personnes.
Carney sucks at French. He's better than me, but...
de soldats. Je crois que c'est à peu près 40
40 ou 50 000 de mémoire.
45 000, oui,
oui.
c'est ça.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire de
C'est-
plus?
mais oui, on doit faire de plus parce que la taille des forces ukrainiennes va augmenter à cause de l'accord du paix. Premier, ça, c'est le premier point. Deuxièmement, on peut fournir les logistiques et la surveillance et le cyber et tout cela. On peut aider ça. Troisièmement, on peut fournir et on va fournir la production des armements pour les Ukrainiens,
I mean, he's just giving reasons for something. I don't know.
des joint ventures entre l'Ukraine et le Canada. Nous avons déjà commencé ces projets-là, mais on va les augmenter. En ce qui concerne les troupes, les soldats sur le terrain ukrainien, oui, c'est une possibilité. C'est une possibilité. Mais il faut avoir une coalition de la volonté, il faut avoir une force multilatérale, y compris les États-Unis. Mais c'est exactement ça qui est sur la table. Mais tous les détails, on va avoir une discussion ouverte, transparente, après le processus du paix. Parce qu'il faut avoir l'accord du paix avec la Russie et l'Ukraine afin de mettre en œuvre une garantie de sécurité.
Devant les paroles et les actions de Donald Trump au Venezuela et à propos du Groenland, quelle est la position du Canada sur la défense du Groenland? Est-ce que vous croyez, comme votre homologue danoise que vous allez rencontrer aujourd'hui, qu'une action militaire américaine là-bas voudrait dire la fin de l'OTAN?
I think he said, "What is the position of Canada on Greenland?" And then he said, mentioned Venezuela and stuff. The person asking the question also, knowing Carney doesn't have the best French, is not really speaking that slowly in French, I would say.
Premier point, en ce qui concerne l'avenir de Groenland, c'est uniquement une décision pour le peuple, pour le Groenland et le Danemark.
Said it's a decision for Greenland and Denmark.
Uniquement le Groenland et le Danemark. Deuxième point, en ce qui concerne le rôle de l'OTAN, depuis longtemps, et pendant toute la période quand je suis Premier ministre, c'est la position du Canada qu'il faut investir dans la sécurité de l'Arctique. En effet, l'Arctique canadien, l'Arctique de Groenland.
I think he's saying we must invest in the security of the Arctic, but I don't know if he means America or Canada or what.
Et l'espace nordique. Okay? Et on fait de progrès dans l'OTAN, mais il faut avancer le progrès. Il faut augmenter le progrès. Alors, j'aurai une discussion cet après-midi avec le secrétaire général de l'OTAN, M. Rutte, sur ce sujet. OK.
What?
Oh, we'll do two. Fine. We got Murray here. Yeah.
Mackenzie
Go.
Gray with Global News, Prime Minister.
Sorry.
President Trump has said one of the key reasons that he went into Venezuela was to get the oil out. Do you think this will impact the Canadian oil sector, and does that increase the need, in your estimation, to have a pipeline to the northwest coast of BC?
That's a great question, but I don't think the pipeline is going to be built. They're just going to find reasons to not build it. That's what I predict.
I'll say a couple of things. One is that, from our perspective, the removal of an illegitimate, corrupt, repressive government or leader, Mr. Maduro, is welcome news. It creates the possibility.
That's actually a good statement, I think, from Carney. I thought that was different than the statement they gave on social media, but maybe not. That sounds more similar to Poilievre's statement.
For democratic transition in Venezuela. We very much support that. We're available to support that, and we urge that to happen in a peaceful transition. And that's the best prospect for greater prosperity for the Venezuelan people and to respect the will of the Venezuelan people. Now, a functioning, not corrupt Venezuelan economy will produce more oil. It'll be better for the Venezuelan people. It'll be more stable for the Western Hemisphere. That's all a good thing. Canadian oil, Canadian energy, but I'll speak because you asked specifically about Canadian oil. It's been our view, and we're working towards this, that Canadian oil will be competitive because it is low risk, clearly low risk, low cost, the marginal costs. There's been huge progress in getting down the costs, and low carbon, which is what the Pathways project, carbon capture, will bring. And that makes Canadian oil competitive.
No one actually, I don't think, cares about the low carbon thing. These companies are not going to keep, to the degree they even did, a lot of the sentiment around obsessing over climate change is definitely shifting towards let's not care anymore. I don't think the carbon competitive thing in a few years might not even register on companies' radar. I mean, eventually we're going to need to transition out of oil as a world, but I don't know when that's going to be. It's not going to be in the next 5 years. So I don't think the carbon competitive thing is going to have the same effect that it maybe was having for the last 10 or 15 years. And I think it's time for Canadian politicians to realize that. These companies with a fiduciary duty to shareholders are just going to choose the best option. So I think the question is actually a good one about what will the situation in Venezuela, how will that impact Canada? It definitely does, I think, have more or bring more urgency to build the pipelines. But again, like I said, I don't think Canada is going to do that, unfortunately.
Competitive for the medium and long term. So we welcome the prospect of peace, a peaceful transition, democratic Venezuela. We welcome the prospect of greater prosperity in Venezuela, but we also see the competitiveness of Canadian oil, and we're investing, or we're putting in place measures so that that's going to happen. And in that context, a pipeline and exports to Asia. We've got competitive product, and we'd be diversifying our markets, and that's one of the reasons why we signed the comprehensive MOU with Alberta. So we'll be working towards that.
Ms. Freeland resigned yesterday as your...
How long is it going to take, though? Come on. Again, I don't expect this pipeline to actually work. I made this point in a different video. I think the anti-pipeline crowd has way more conviction than the pro-pipeline crowd. Until people who are pro-pipeline are way more vocal about it, I don't think it'll happen.
Special representative.
Is that a follow-up?
The
That seems
reconstruction
like a totally
law.
different
I wish we had
question.
more time. I wanted to ask more Venezuela stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Did you ask her not to quit because of the minority parliament situation right now?
There's a question about Chrystia Freeland, if you didn't catch that, quitting or resigning or whatever.
No, absolutely not. First off, let me...
I should say, as a member of parliament.
Let me just to be clear, Ms. Freeland, Chrystia has served our country for well over a decade in a formal role as a parliamentarian, certainly in a number of ministerial posts, and served with great distinction. She was, I had her as my special envoy after she left cabinet for the Ukraine reconstruction. Judgment became her judgment that she could be more useful for that process as she was leaving, as she was retiring as a parliamentarian, as a direct advisor. My judgment was that taking that role would be consistent with resigning as an MP, and I welcomed her doing that, and I'm pleased that for Ukraine.
In no world is what Chrystia Freeland just did acceptable or appropriate. You should have resigned way before taking that role. And then even if you take the role, say even a year later, I think then it's up to scrutiny. I'd still say you shouldn't do that. You could at least argue, though. You could have a debate about it. The way she did it right now, it's so insane that she did that. She's still technically an MP as it stands right now, taking a role and being like, oh, but I plan to resign. on some future date. It's insane. It's literally the most insane thing I've seen in a while. I mean, probably something more insane in Canadian politics will happen this week alone, but...
And again, if I can reemphasize and bring it back to today, there is real momentum. Nothing's assured, but there's real momentum in this peace process. And the security guarantees are incredibly important, but as is the reconstruction and the prosperity plan, and she'll be there to work on that. And look, we'll have a by-election. There'll be a few by-elections coming up, and we'll run great candidates, and the people in those ridings will decide who they want to send to Parliament. Mr. Brewster.
Prime
Save it
Minister,
for you.
Murray Brewster with CBC News. Thanks for taking our questions. I just want to pick up on what Christian was talking with you about a moment ago on Greenland. The Danish Prime Minister has said that any type of military force used to annex Greenland would be the end of NATO. Do you concur with that assessment?
Well, let me reiterate what I said to Mr. Noel, which is that the
What did they say? That's pretty aggressive. What was the question?
Military force used to annex Greenland. The Danish Prime Minister has said that any type of military force used to annex Greenland would be the end of NATO.
Jeez, man, I don't think that that's for you to say. The leader of Denmark?
Do you concur with that assessment?
Well, let me reiterate what I said to Mr. Noel, which is that the future of Greenland is a decision for Greenland and for Denmark exclusively. It's their decision. Second,
Something tells me that President Trump would disagree with that.
secondly, from a NATO context, the way I would frame it is that the western flank of NATO, which would include Greenland, the Arctic, is, given the evolving threat environment, is an area that we as NATO, Canada obviously importantly, given our geography, need to invest more in. This is a point that we've been making in recent years and since I became Prime Minister that we've really stressed. And with our buildup that's just beginning of our military capabilities, we are making heavy investments in the Arctic. We'll be working with our Nordic partners. We'll be working through NATO. This is one of the issues I'll be discussing with the Secretary General as part of an ongoing discussion with him around this to further advance it.
Stephen Miller, who is a senior advisor to President Trump, has refused to rule out military force in the annexation of Greenland. Does that trouble you?
Well, I didn't see the specific comments that Mr. Miller may have made. Look, take a step back. We're partners in...
I don't really even know why the leader of Canada has to answer questions like this. I mean, Greenland is kind of close, I guess. I mean, it's probably pretty close, actually, to the Arctic part of Canada, but...
NATO. It is a mutual defense alliance. We can provide that security. And when we look at a couple basic, there's basic principles here, which is self-determination of nations, sovereignty, territorial integrity. And then there is approaches that we have as partners to what we're trying to accomplish. And as NATO, we can provide security for all of NATO, Greenland included. And as the threat environment is changing, we're making the investments in order to do that, and we can operationalize and augment and build additional plans to do that. So, and that's what we will do. And we stand.
That was a non-answer. He didn't say really anything there.
Stand with Denmark. We stand with Greenland. Our closest partnership is with the United States, and we'll work with everybody to make sure that we move forward together. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Kind of a non-answer, but I'm fine with him giving a non-answer because I don't think the question is that important really for a Canadian leader to be answering. But anyway, with that said, I'll finish the video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.